Will democracy survive the next couple of years?
And essentially, we are the same.
And there are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center in Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Firefly Credit Union, with locations throughout the Twin Cities, has proudly served Minnesotans since 1925. Firefly guides its members forward by delivering customized financial solutions to improve their lives in all aspects of banking. Firefly Credit Union, they light the way with life illuminated. Edina Eye, Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years. Now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services but dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns by Zoom, as we have been doing lately, and we have a return guest, manyfold guest, many times over many years. We've been really graced with the presence of Sandy Masin of District 51A, House of Representatives, and welcome back, Sandy.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
Well, we're hanging in. We're Zooming, and we're doing the best we can. We're staying pretty well close to base, and we wear our masks, and I hope that we'll get through this.
Go ahead. We don't have a choice. It's just proceed forward.
Yeah, we don't have much of a choice. That's true. Now, Sandy is running for re-election. She's completed, I think, 7 terms, if I'm correct, in the House of Representatives. Something a little bit unusual in Sandy's case this year is she has a primary. Somebody filed to run for the same office, so she has to get rid of the primary before she can move on to the election. And she has become one of the senior members of the House of Representatives, one of the most respected members of the House of Representatives, one of the people who is not ashamed to cross the aisle and come up with legislation that's acceptable to both sides. And in this very, very partisan world, that in and of itself is very unusual. Sandy signed on to 121 bills in this last legislature, 4 of which were hers and I think were passed, but where other people signed on with her. But is that a fair representation?
Pretty much. I think there were a number of bills that just were not getting heard this year, unfortunately. And I think, especially in the House, and I'm going to concern myself with the House of Representatives, because even though after we did stop meeting at the Capitol for hearings, we still had Zoom meetings going on. So I think we accomplished quite a bit, even in spite of the difficulties that we were facing this year.
And of course, on top of the difficulties, there was a special session which accomplished very little, even in the face of the murder of George Floyd, where we thought we would get some really meaningful legislation involving the police. Not too much got accomplished there either. Is that a fair statement?
Unfortunately, that is true. I mean, we did pass some of the bills, but the main ones that and the one that I think is most disappointing is we didn't pass the bonding bill in the regular session. So then when we have the special session, one would hope that we'd be able to reach agreement on that. We still have not done that. And that to me is a real disservice to the to Minnesotans. And the thing that I thought was really awful about the special session is that the Republican leadership in the Senate came in saying they were only going to stay till Friday. And essentially that's what they did, even though like most of us were up Friday night all evening, and because most of the important committees were still meeting, the CARES committee, the police accountability, et cetera. And eventually around 3:45 in the morning, we were told, again, they're still going on, but around 6 o'clock, the Senate met and they adjourned sine die. That to me was reprehensible. I think there were so many of us that were just angry that we were that close, and yet the Senate leadership did not think it was important enough to get these bills passed. And again, bonding is important.
No, I say what that necessitates is probably you're going to have a second special session, and it's really ludicrous to me. And of course, it's ludicrous in terms of the state, because each time that happens, it becomes very costly. But to go into a special session saying that we're going to be out of here by Friday night, no matter what, is a kind of it's a way to back away from your responsibility as a legislator. And that's what happened here. So that certainly, you know, we hear all these platitudes before the session starts from the Republicans in particular about, oh, we need the infrastructure is crumbling and we need legislation and this and that. And the governor makes a proposal and then automatically they say too much. There are certain things that you can count on automatically with the Republicans. One is lower taxes and the other is less regulation. And, you know, I think that they probably, right after they take the oath of office, they get programmed with some sort of an injection so that that's the first thing that comes out of their mouths. But really, it is such a crime in a state that had the 35W bridge fall into the Mississippi River, where we lost 13 lives and many, many people were injured. Just to turn their back on such needed legislation, the crux of which is you're going to be called back for another session.
Let me say a couple of things. This special session was different from most of our others. Usually when we go into the special session, the House, the Senate, and the governor have pretty much an agreement. So we know what we're going to do. The votes are pretty much going to be what was agreed upon. And yeah, we were usually out in a day or so. That was not the case with this one. There was no agreement going in. Plus the fact, if the way I was listening to the governor, he didn't care how long we were in because he wanted that police accountability and the bonding bills passed. And that's what I thought is, you know, first of all, bonding, as you said, we have so much old infrastructure throughout the state. Most of the stuff goes back 50 years. So we are still living on basically our parents or grandparents' contributions. And here, when it's our time, there's not enough people that want to step up to make sure that our kids and grandchildren will have safe infrastructure. That to me is irresponsible. And then the police accountability, I mean, anybody that lived through that, I mean, we have, you know, I get letters from all over the country. They are watching what we're doing here. And the fact that we have some of the Republican senators that even within the past week have said things that just admits that they have no idea of what's going on. I mean, they still don't get it.
And they haven't gotten it. And it's been an ongoing problem. Interestingly enough, just a turnaround of several seats in the Senate will return it to Democratic hands. And if that happens, and obviously this election is so important on many, many grounds, starting at the presidency, but if that happens, if we have two houses and a governor, we can expect to get a lot done in the next 2-year term. And that's, I suppose, what we're working for. And on top of that, you have to worry about a primary first, and then return yourself to office.
It's obviously there is so much going on, and that's one of the main reasons that I still want to run. We've got so much to do in the areas of transportation and healthcare. And I'm thinking if COVID did nothing else, it highlighted some of the things that I've been fighting for, which is healthcare access for all, better education, more transportation, and just overall safety concerns. I mean, that to me was a couple of the things that we've learned from COVID. And then obviously from the protest, we know that we need better, how would I put it, government accountability. And so those are things that we just really need to be concentrating on.
And really embarrassing for this state, which has always been thought of as one of the most progressive and states that's in the front of things that are progressive, that are necessary, that are really examples for the rest of the country, to have the George Floyd murder documented, and then to have the Republicans give lip service to, oh, we've got to do this and we've got to do that in terms of tightening up our policing. And let me say that 90+% of police officers go through their entire career, never draw their gun, and are not involved in the type of conduct that we have seen here. And I think that people have a tendency to forget that, that they spend their entire time really doing what their oath calls for them to do. But there are, as we have seen in the paper so much, a few bad apples, to use that expression, that really make it a bad example for the entire force. And I don't think that's really, really fair to the good police that we have. Here in Egan, we have a police force that we're very proud of under Roger New. And in Minneapolis, again, they have a chief and 900 officers. And we talk about the few bad ones, but let's not forget that. But then the Democrats came in with 10 or 11 good sense suggestions. And what did you end up passing? 3 or 4?
Actually, the police accountability is not, I mean, the House passed an extensive Police Accountability Act, but it was never agreed to by the Senate. So, I mean, we didn't get, literally, we did not get it done. I mean, that's the horrid part, is that we're in special session. I think everyone expected us to be able to do that. And I do want to say something, just to be clear, this is not a new issue. I mean, when, well over a year ago, Attorney General and had set up this work group to deal with police violence, et cetera. So they had recommendations coming before us, and those were being discussed in Public Safety Committee even before the protest. So that's, you know, again, when it's not just a gut reaction that this bill is being put together, this was ongoing. It just is the fact that it precipitated, and the fact that I don't think we were getting much help from the Senate before the session ended. And one would hope that after the protest and in special session, we would have finally been able to get that done.
Well, interestingly enough, there may be some Republican representatives who marched during the protests, I didn't see them, but that doesn't mean they weren't there. I did see Democrats. I did see mayors. I did see representatives marching in the protests and visiting 38th in Chicago. But I can't say that I saw a lot of Republicans. So I don't want to say that they weren't there, but they certainly weren't visible to me. And I think that tells you something about why nothing was done. The Democratic bill was never taken up. And there's so much more that could have been gotten done during the session, but it just seems to fester, and time ticks by. Suddenly, it's time to adjourn because that's mandated, the adjourn date, and then we're left with special session. Special session means bringing everybody back during a pandemic or making arrangements during a pandemic to pass legislation, to discuss legislation, not the easiest thing to do, even on a good day. And then that special session ends, and now we face another special session, another expense. And really, how can you be one of these Republicans to go back to your district and talk about what you got done, or is it that you talk about what you didn't get done while you were protecting I don't know what?
Okay, let me add a couple of things. One is I know that I was on a Zoom meeting with our posse caucus, and they were thanking a lot of their colleagues for the help that they had. And some of these were Republican colleagues that had taken food to into Minneapolis after the protests. So there were Republicans that were trying to help.
I'm glad to hear that.
And so it's, and mainly, again, the ones that I'm aware of were from the House. I'm not sure how much was taking place with the Senate, but that was helpful. And certainly, even when you think about the people in our community that were that were trying to help out, and actually at an intersection near me, there are still signs like the Black Lives Matter signs at the corner over here. So, I mean, while we were far enough away so that we didn't suffer the physical impact, I do know that there were people from our community that were going in to protest the killing. I mean, I know that happened, and I know that there's a lot of people that expect us to be making changes. I mean, we're very, as I said, as you mentioned, we're very fortunate in Eagan and Burnsville to have good police systems, but that's not always the case in other communities.
And really, the time passed, though, during the middle of the pandemic. And if there's anything that really pointed out the need for good health care for everyone, I think this pandemic, more than anything else, certainly did. And we had our share of, it seems to be now not spiking anymore in Minnesota. And I should hit myself in the head to knock wood when I say that. But it seems to be not spiking. It seems to be leveling off. And yet we had a governor who imposed restrictions, and the other side of the aisle was screaming like stuck pigs about the restrictions that he imposed. Open up, open up, open up. It's bad for the economy. Well, take a look down south right now. Take a look at Arizona. Take a look at Texas. Take a look at Florida. Take a look at any of those states where they opened up, and see what they really, really reaped as a result of it. Things are chaotic and they're going haywire. People are not only getting sick, but people are dying. And it really, really, it's criminal. Of course, there's been no direction from the federal government to speak of. Because we have a president who speaks from both sides of his mouth. But we have to be thankful that our governor was there and talking good sense, which ultimately, I believe, saved people's lives.
Let me add one thing. I mean, most of the people that I've talked with are really comfortable with the actions taken by our governor and feel that he's pretty well grounded. But I do get particularly emails that want us to totally open up, and want all the powers taken away from the governor. But in this special session, one of the bills that did not get passed was the money from the federal government for the CARES Act that would have gotten money to the local governments. We did not get that passed. Fortunately, because the governor still has emergency powers, he just distributed that money the other day. So the job got done, not because the legislature agreed on the bill. It had to be done by the governor. And I mean, otherwise our cities and counties would still be waiting for that money.
Yeah, I think I saw that in the paper today, something like $641 million, if I'm not mistaken.
800. 841.
You know, 200 million here or there. But when you talk about that, and to communities that need it so desperately in so many areas, particularly healthcare, as what we're going through, that in and of itself certainly is something that voters should look at and see who was responsible for holding that up when they go to the polls November 3rd, which is, as I said in an earlier interview, we always say this may be the most important expression vote of your life, excuse me, of your lifetime, but I really think this year it is.
I might mention, again, the bill, one of the other bills that didn't get passed was this had to do with COVID, where we were trying to get more money to the personal care attendants. Because that to me is, we should be paying them more in the first place, but nevertheless, at least for the COVID, we put through a bill that would have paid them up to $15 and made sure they have the equipment, because they are the ones that are going into the homes to help people stay in their homes and are very vulnerable. So, I mean, the fact, as I said, the fact that the Senate walked away from some of these bills was just huge, just absolutely huge. And again, I don't blame the whole Senate. I know that there's some senators that probably agree with what the House was doing, but it is primarily the leadership that has the ultimate say, and that's what happened. And that, as I said, and unfortunately right now, we don't even have the public doesn't have access to us, because literally all the Capitol complex, the buildings are closed, and around the Capitol there is fencing. So it's really hard to connect with the legislators other than by phone or for email.
Well, at least they have that. I don't know, do your legislative assistants get in the Capitol, or are they not?
No,
allowed?
they are not. They are in the House, or at least in the House. Our LAs are still working from home.
So then it becomes really difficult, other than
Exactly.
email, to contact your legislator at a time when that's critically important. You mentioned healthcare, and I know you have been one who has been talking about raising the salary of healthcare workers and the pay scale, not because of the pandemic. You've been doing it back for years. And,
Exactly.
we have seen little progress there, but certainly there's no time like the present when we should see really something on that regard.
Yeah, because I mean, that's an industry that's been in crisis for the last few years. And then coupled with the COVID, if anybody gets sick, I mean, there's just not a lot of flexibility there. I mean, we're just lucky that people feel committed to the people that they are serving. I mean, it's just awful. But again, the fact that even the bill that we were passing, it would have only been for the duration of COVID, but that's better than nothing. And these people are doing extraordinary service.
It's a start. have you been able to hold virtual town halls? I know you are one who thrives on having many, many town halls with your people, with your constituents, and how have you been handling that?
It's been really tough to do that. I know I'm trying to get one scheduled through our house, but through the campaign, we've been trying to do some neighborhood Zoom meetings, and I think that's the best we can do right now, because we really, at least in my judgment, I don't think people are ready for us to be door knocking yet. So I'm hoping that if we can get people to use the Zoom meetings and we make it about their, just their neighborhoods and community, it will hopefully we'll be able to connect with people.
One of the reasons you've been so successful, and I mentioned it earlier, is that you are one of the people who doesn't think twice about crossing the aisle and sitting down with a Republican and trying to work out middle ground where you can pass some legislation. And you have, over the years, in your several terms, you have managed to do that. You have that reputation among the legislators. And, it's not everybody who you can say, I've never heard a bad word about X, but I have never heard a bad word about Sandy Masin from legislators. And of course, we have them from both sides of the aisle on this show, although sometimes they're a little frightened to come in from the other side of the aisle. But that's part of your makeup, and that's part of what I think a legislator should be made of.
Thank you. And I guess I've always had an open door policy. And the bottom line is, we're each elected individual. We each have our election certificates. So the bottom line is we're supposed to do the best job we can for Minnesota. And sometimes that, when we have strong differences of opinion, that's difficult. But nevertheless, there are a lot of other issues where we do agree. So you just do the best you can. And again, that's the way a democracy should work, in my opinion.
Now, I know you were involved with a COVID-19 bill to have relief for school districts during this period of time, this tragic and really very fragmented period of time. How did that end up?
So, we were, basically one of the things that we were trying to do is to make sure that all the employees were paid, because the school districts are using many of the, their people from, say, the kitchen staff, et cetera, to deliver food, et cetera, to the students. So that's been going on, but it is getting to be difficult from a perspective of funding. And at this point, since we're not sure how the final process will be for the fall yet, I think they have a little bit longer to determine how they're going to proceed into the fall. So we're going to have to wait to see what they're doing. But I know we did have a legislative meeting with 196 for recently. We'll probably be doing that with all of our school districts to make sure that we are able to give them the coverage or the leeway that they need to be able to proceed.
Talking with Sandy Masin,
in the future.
House of Representatives, District 51A. She's been a guest many times over many terms in office, and I wish you good luck. Come back soon, and let's hope the second session goes well. Sandy, thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan. Have a good day.
You too.